We're told we live in an open society of rational actors, where ideas rise or fall on their own merit, expertise are acknowledged, and people are making rational, economically self-interested decisions. Almost everything I just said is wrong. Let's look at why. Firstly, the concept of an open society relies on ideas where the strength of argument and evidence prevails, rather than the strength of repetition or misinformation. It shouldn't matter if a single person with evidence and good argumentation went against an entire university of professors stuck in their old worldview, or an entire regime of politicians incentivized to say the opposite of the truth, or misrepresent, or muddy waters, or character assassinate. Yet, our society doesn't fulfill these criteria. It's very clear that with enough material resources, enough money, enough feet on the ground, and enough personal charisma, you can make bad ideas win. It's not clear that bad ideas are in fact being corrected step by step. I do think we make progress in some areas, but we make less progress in other areas. In fact, we backslide in many ways. People today are grappling with the idea that public opinion can be scientifically managed by social engineers at Facebook. But there is a book from 1927 where Edward Bernays talks about how propaganda is reshaping society. Bernays' main thesis is that America has transitioned into a managed democracy from a wild democracy. The managed democracy applies the lessons learned in marketing, the same lessons that create economic demand in people on a massive scale, into lessons that will create political demand in people on massive scale, using knowledge of both their psychology and the use of modern media such as newspapers, radio, and much later, after the book is published, the internet or television. 1927 is not too different from 2019. Yet we, as the public, have not learned this lesson. We are in fact continuously surprised that Facebook might influence elections. Back in 2012, this seemed an exciting prospect. Now it seems that it empowers central institutions that are not transparent to us as individual citizens. In a political sense, we do not live in an open society. In a scientific sense, science bows to power, and always has. In societies where persecution is used, or methods of discrediting are used, science is routinely compromised. A great example would be psychiatry in communist Yugoslavia and the Soviet Union, where a new psychological diagnosis was invented, one of sluggishly progressing schizophrenia, the main symptom of which was questioning the social order and the Communist Party, and the other symptom was, you might not have any symptoms of schizophrenia anyway. You might in fact seem like a normal, healthy person, but an established and licensed psychiatrist has diagnosed you as very much a threat to society. This mechanism was used to discredit individuals, but more importantly, corrupted Soviet psychological research. Another example from the Soviet Union is Lysenkoism. Lysenkoism denied Mendelian genetics. This was very useful to Joseph Stalin, who wanted solid scientific reasons for why the 5-year plans will succeed in increasing crop yields, even though all agricultural experts agreed this was not possible. Timofey Lysenko was promoted by state media as a scientist, and geneticists were sent off to the gulags. You might think of this as just a cynical move of propaganda. However, when the Chinese were trying to set up their agricultural system, they took Lysenkoism at face value. And this was one of the contributors to the great famines of Mao. Those did not merely occur out of political malice, but out of epistemic failure. In the United States, it would be very hard to make the case that the truth of global warming matters one way or another. The political process has gone off the rails and will make a decision that is not informed by the scientific consensus. In fact, the scientific consensus can be moved via grants, via money, via prestige, and via law. We therefore do not live in a straightforwardly open society. What about self-interest? What about economic self-interest? Most people have remarkable difficulty planning their own lives. All of us have grappled with it. Most people do not do thorough research on how they spend their money as consumers. There are, of course, voluntary organizations of people doing this. However, we mostly act on trust. Further, almost everyone deeply cares about fellow man. All of us care about our children, our pets, we care about our neighbors, we care about people in our churches, in our workplaces, and so on. And we make decisions all the time that do not seem economical. If you look at, say, the welfare state of Sweden, we have to acknowledge it kind of works, even though in strictly economical terms, it would always be better for Swedish citizens to simply take as much welfare as they can. Yet they, in the millions, choose not to. That is not economic self-interest. That is perhaps a certain kind of social self-interest, if there was a stigma to using those services. But most Nordic countries do not have that stigma. So, what is happening? People are acting out of more than just economic self-interest. It might sound unusual that I'm proposing a positive fact about human nature as something that is a problem for our theories. But if our theories take an overly bleak view of human nature, they can be just as destructive, just as inaccurate, than if they take a too optimistic view of it. Our consensus and decision-making and democratic process are not the primary decision makers in our society either, so the final nail in the coffin of the normal view of our society. Most decisions are made by civil servants. When decisions are not made by civil servants, they're made outside of government. The time horizons of politicians are too short to push through coherent agendas. One of the most notable things is that European countries have been shown to be able to function without elected governments. Belgium, during the height of the financial crisis, did not have an elected government, an administration, to use American terminology, for something like 400 days. And it actually did a number of very interesting things, such as bailed out their largest bank and responded coherently to the economic pressure. What is happening is that there are teams of entrenched bureaucracies that have decade-spanning agendas and lobby for their own budgets politicians who barely step into the driver's seat before they're kicked out of it. America is not an open society. Its scientific and moral progress has to be explained through some other mechanism. America is not the land of self-interested individuals. Its prosperity must be explained through some other mechanism. America is not a democracy. Its good government and straightforward, honest laws have to be explained through some other mechanism. What are these mechanisms? Well, this, my friends, is true political science. This is true social science. My name is Samo Burja. I'm the founder of Bismarck Analysis. Thank you for watching this video, and please subscribe.